talking about revamping it, and Nazri suddenly is the champion for racial equality and all the rest of it. It's hilarious. It's hilarious. And it won't have happened if they were not frightened. You know, the release of the Bukit Antarabangsa report. Would this have happened a year, 2 years ago? I don't think so. They would have said, shut up, it's OSA, too bad. But not anymore, they can't. They can't do that anymore. And why is this? Well, it's because of the pressure that civil society has been putting on them, as well as the thought that maybe they would lose power. And yet, earlier this week, I read an article by Hishamuddin Rais, who's sitting right in front here. And Hisham compared the two-party system to making a choice between Pepsi and Coke. Or between making a choice between Adidas and Puma. There's lots of truth in what he says, I agree. If you look at the two-party systems in the world today, what difference is there? For example, between the Tories, the Conservative Party, and the Labour Party in England. The difference between the two has become almost non-existent, especially ever since the last Prime Minister, Tony Blair, started to look more and more like the illegitimate child of Margaret Thatcher. And yes, Barack Obama is much more palatable than Bush, but his warmongering ways look very familiar, albeit with less idiotic language. In both these examples, you see a different party, but the same fundamental capitalist system in place. So Hisham's claim does hold water. However, this complaint works on the assumption that one wants to change the entire system completely. And I wonder if this is truly what we all want. Perhaps such revolutionary desires are not what lies in the hearts of the people. And if you wish to work within the system, or if we wish to be pragmatic and realize that at least for now, capitalism is what is entrenched in this day and age, we can still work towards ensuring that certain values of humanism, environmentalism, and justice can still exist. For example, would we have better working conditions, paid leave, medical leave, etc., if it was not for the efforts of the trade unions? Or would we have women's rights if it was not for the suffragettes? Would we have environmental laws if it was not for environmental groups? All these people were civil society people, and they worked within the system as such. They didn't change the entire system, but they improved it. Speaking about environment, let me tell you a little story, because this is what I teach. May I drink this? Thank you. There's a treaty, there's an international treaty called the Ramsar Treaty on Wetlands of Importance, especially to waterfowl. Waterfowl are birds, yeah? Birds that live on water. Now, this is a treaty which has grown tremendously, especially over the past 10 years, and most countries in the world are party to it, and their obligation is to protect the wetlands within their borders. Right? Now, the source of this law, which is now, which has parties numbering about 150 now, almost all the countries in the world, the source of this law, if you believe it or not, comes from the nerdiest subculture of society. And who am I talking about? I'm talking about bird watchers. Now, it doesn't happen very much in Malaysia. The bird watchers you find in Malaysia tend to hang around Mega Mall and things like that. But if you go to the UK, there's this very strange subspecies of humans called bird watchers who spend their weekends with a cup, with a thermos flask of tea, which their mother probably made for them, and a set of binoculars and some sandwiches, and they go out looking for birds, and they get very excited when they see a blackbird or thrush or cuckoo or whatever it is that they're looking for. Alright? And these bird watchers in the 60s suddenly realized that the birds that they were watching were decreasing in number. And they wondered why. And they realized that the reason why the birds were decreasing in number was because their habitat was being destroyed. not only for those who live in the country, not only for the birds that live in the country, but for birds that travel. As you know, birds move from the north to the south in the winter time, and from the south to the north in the summertime. This is the migration of birds. Yeah? And when birds migrate, just like us, when we travel north on the north-south highway, sometimes we need to stop to rest. And where do they rest? They rest in wetlands, lakes, marshes, etc. So when you destroy these marshes and lakes, all these birds are flapping furiously, but they can't find a stop. You know, and I'm sure we can identify that when we're driving down the north-south highway and there's no place to take a wee. And we get desperate, yeah? And these birds were dying off because there was nowhere for them to rest. And so this bunch of bird watchers actually pushed for a law, an international law. Right? So here's an example of civil society having actually worldwide effect. And not the cool civil society either. These are the very uncool civil society, the bird watchers of the world unite. Anyway, civil society movements can change society. Looking at the list of nominees today, ladies and gentlemen, I'm humbled by their hard work and their dedication, and I feel myself far too insignificant to speak at this ceremony. But upon close inspection, what I see are not radicals and revolutionaries. These people, these nominees, they are not Malaysia's answer to Che Guevara or Martin Luther. These are not people looking to overturn the world. What I see are citizens who simply want a fairer system of governance, social justice, a clean environment, the right to live according to one's culture and values. What I see are decent human beings, which makes the situation, which makes the situation of our nation even sadder. For their basic decency reflects a country where this value is in such short supply. When it takes heroic courage to simply stand for decency and kindness, this can only mean that the government heroically stands for the opposite. Ladies and gentlemen, I commend all the nominees. I salute your bravery, I salute your dedication. But I end with a reminder for us all. The work will continue. It must continue, and there will be no end in sight. For progress is not a goal, it is a process. And what we do today will be the foundations for generations in the future to build upon, just as we have built upon the foundations of those who have come before us. And although it might be useful to spur us to action, may I remind us to not allow anger to be our motivating factor. Let us work, but let us work with a smile in our hearts, for life is far too short to be lived in bitterness. Thank you very much.